Amazon Prime Video's 2017 hit The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel finally came to an end in 2023, and the fifth and final season definitely brought a satisfying finish for Midge and her peers. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel follows Midge, a classic 1950s housewife who decides to pursue a career in comedy after finding out her husband has been cheating on her. The series begins in the late 1950s but spans many decades and emphasizes certain historical moments and issues at the turn of the century, especially women's rights. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel Season 5 was a final season that evoked the fun drama of past seasons while also adding new elements. In particular, Season 5 included time jumps wherein every episode jumped to the future, offering a sneak peek at what was to come. While the early Maisel time jumps hinted at an unhappy future for Midge, the season eventually tied a metaphorical pink ribbon around Midge's life and her career. Overall, the season gave plenty of hints as to each character's future while also answering the main question of the season: how did Midge get famous? What happens in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel Season 5's ending? Midge stands up for herself on national TV. The final episode of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel had many questions to answer before its end. Namely, audiences needed to know if Midge would successfully make it onto the Gordon Ford show, how Susie is really connected to Hetty, and whether Midge and Susie would make up in the future. Ultimately, all of these questions are answered in the series finale. After bailing Susie out of jail, Midge prompts her to reveal why she was so hesitant to talk to Hetty, and Susie finally complies, revealing that she and Susie have a romantic history. Soon after, Midge goes to work and Gordon tells her she will appear on the show that night. Seeming like Midge will finally get her big break, she calls her family and Joel to tell them to come to the show and see her perform. However, the episode quickly becomes hectic as Midge discovers that she will not be appearing as a comedian, but as a writer. When the show begins, Midge is humiliated by Gordon but makes a perfectly in-character decision to grab the mic and do her routine anyway. Of course, this pays off, and while she is fired from the show, she is about to shoot to fame. The episode ends with a final time jump to 2005 where Midge is much older but still working hard. She and Susie talk on the phone and watch Jeopardy together, laughing all the while, allowing the show to end with their friendship front and center. How does Midge get famous? Midge does things her way in the end. While The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel Season 5, Episode 8 made it seem like Hetty's influence over Gordon would be the key to Midge's success, this was not exactly the case. While Gordon technically did put Midge on the show, he blindsided her by giving her little time to prepare and also introduced her as a writer rather than a comedian. The ruse is made even worse during the show as Gordon won't let Midge speak at all, and when she makes a joke, he cuts to a commercial. In this way, Midge must take this big break into her own hands. In the series finale, Midge decides to ambush Gordon and force the final 4 minutes of the show into her very own comedy spot. She speaks over Gordon, asks the audience if they want to see her do comedy, walks over to a microphone, and unapologetically begins her set. Midge does so well that even Gordon is impressed, and it's clear that this set will become historic in Midge Maisel's history. It can be assumed then that after Gordon announces her as The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Midge follows the path of fame that audiences have seen in time jumps all season.